The entire world has been at war for a very, very, very long time, and it has been hard for the human race to really thrive. Even today, we're seeing a lot of injustice, unnecessary wars, inequality, genocides, and in my fair opinion, absolute stupidity within the world today. But to be fair, we actually live in a pretty decent time right now compared to other times within human history. So today I wanted to go over the absolute worst times to be alive in human history. First, let's start off with the 14th century. If you don't know what the 14th century is, well, simply put, those were the medieval times. As you know, the medieval times was not sweet at all. They used to build torture devices for fun. The breaking wheel, the breast ripper, and the head crusher. Man, this sounds like the freaking WWE moves of today. Then you got the good old pillory where you can just stone someone to death and make fun of them for being there in the first place. And a lot of the people who were put in those devices didn't even do crimes at all. Most times they were based on accusations that weren't even real. Then you got the political scale that was a little out of whack. You see, at this time, Britain and France engaged themselves in the big old war called the 100-Year War. And to put the icing on top of the cake, the Black Death was looming around that time. The Black Plague, or its government name, the bubonic plague, was a plague that turned around and nearly wiped half of Europe out. And if you want a real live enactment of what The Walking Dead was, the plague was the biggest representation of that. And you better hope that you don't ever see the plague doctor, because once you see those guys, it's pretty much wraps. The plague doctors were the basic Akatsuki of the 14th century, there to bring health and peace to the world. But in reality, if you ever came across them, there's a 90% chance that you wouldn't make it out of there. Like, could you imagine being a 6-year-old kid trying to make it to the ripe age of 7 and having to see a final boss pull up on you to show if you're going to live or not? And all that death, all because a rat didn't want to turn around and wash. Oh yeah. The 14th century was also when the witch hunts started. Now keep in mind the witch hunts lasted almost 300 years. There's a reason why it took women so long to gain education back in the day. Because they could always be accused of being a witch and being hunted down to the ends of the earth. All because they wanted to learn about the stars. Oh yeah, remember that 100-Year War? Britain and France were engaged in that for 100 years. But the difference here is Britain fought just to go ahead and become the kings of France, and the French ended up winning the war anyway. This war was kind of a little overlooked anyway, since the Black Death kind of interrupted a lot of their battles till about the 1400s. But still, if you were part of either of those sides, it was a pretty rough life. You would either turn around and have to be employed to be inside the army, or you'd be worried about which one of them Britain kings was going to take over your land. Yeah, the 14th century was not a walk in the park. But let's take a trip back to the 4th century where a volcano nearly took out the entire human race. The volcanic winter of 536. You see, we tend to complain about climate change a lot, but they pretty much got the all-pro version of it. The volcanic winter of 536 did a lot of damage to the northern hemisphere for about a good chunk of years. It was pretty bad because the environment was no place to raise crops, grow food, or they were starting to become no water at the time as well. So that meant a lot of pain, suffering, and agony. A lot of starvation. A lot of food went bad. It just wasn't a great time. Actually, to put it all together, this was probably one of the few factors that turned around and downed the Roman Empire. Like, it's crazy to think a volcano turned around and one-shot the entire kingdom that was dominant for almost 3 or 4 centuries. Heck, maybe even longer than that. Wait, let me go fact check that real quick. I stand corrected. Then there was what people would call caveman times, or like how I like to call it, the land before time. Let's just say our lives were really short around that period. Why, you might ask? Well, shelter was very sparse, dealing with the other animals wasn't fun at all, and then finding food wasn't exactly that easy neither. The good part is we had spears. Those lovely spears helped us get through some tough times. The problem is, they were 50% effective, because if you missed on that first try, you were dead. I mean, you gotta think about it. We were dealing with prehistoric animals here. We talking the saber-toothed tiger, the woolly mammoth, and even direwolves, and scientists decided to bring that joint back. I mean, we barely survived that era. If we keep playing around, we'll turn around and have a whole Jurassic Park situational going on. Like, the last thing I want is for a Tyrannosaurus Rex to turn around and pull me out of a tree. Or even worse, dragged to the bottom of the sea by the random Loch Ness monster. After that, this last segment is the 20th century. And even though it sounds recent, well, it's because it is. This segment's going to be pretty long because there's just so much stuff happening at that time. The 19th century definitely would have been an honorable mention, but it was more of a build-up to what happened in the 20th century. To put it into better perspective, the 19th century was kind of one of those times where everybody was just staring at each other with angry faces and threatening them across the pond, and the 20th century is when they actually pulled the guns out. After kicking off all the slavery from the dust from the 19th century, the 20th century decided to start off with World War I. During World War I, nobody liked each other, and everybody held guns up to each other's faces and were waiting for someone to go ahead and shoot. It just so happened that one of the little guys shot first, and that forced all the big guys to shoot next, and thus starting a war that no one wanted to be a part of. And this was one of the first times Britain and France were actually on the same side, for once. Once that first war was over, everyone's kind of shaken up. A lot of people had been turned around and removed from their homes to engage in that war. Or if you weren't engaged in the war, usually you were affected by it. In the end, nobody really won all that much. Germany got the bad end of the stick, and things weren't exactly great. Then the Great Depression came right on after that, where everybody was just straight poor. Man, people were fighting for everything around that time. I think somebody even turned around and involved themselves in cannibalism. And that Great Depression turned around and evolved into an even greater issue. You see, a certain Austrian painter remembered vividly how World War I went and felt as though he needed to get his get back. Which pushed us into World War II. Like, man, we couldn't catch a break at all. I mean, those times are so trying that it's like each and every 20 years, you'd be somewhere that you really didn't want to be. And to top it all off, a lot of countries diplomatically weren't doing all that great neither. Russia had their revolution early on. Britain and France kept going broke from all the world wars that they got involved in. Germany was just getting murdered across the board every time they engaged in it. And back in the US, segregation and Jim Crow laws were at its highest. Like, imagine you went to go get a sip of water and you decided not read the label on it. And because you didn't read the label, you were turned around and dragged to the woods by the KKK. Like, that's a tough life. But now that we're in the 21st century, I would say so far across the entire world, things are okay. We aren't in any world wars yet, and we're more on a neutral balance in the world for now. But as of recent times, I'm starting to see a few changes that's a bit concerning. But what do you guys think? Do you feel as though that there are some things I should have added? Tell all your thoughts and opinions down in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel, follow me on TikTok and Instagram, and if you have any great ideas, send it to my email right here. Aside from that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.